Bill Maher is by no means perfect. He has said many stupid things in recent history. He said something of several months ago, bring on the recession to try and take down Donald Trump. Yes, he repeatedly says very silly things. He blamed Nick Salmon, the Covington kid, claiming the kid walked up to Nathan Phillips. Never happened. His facts were wrong. But Bill Maher is still one of the better personalities on the left. And we can see so here with this story. Bill Maher slams social justice warriors as cancerous to progressivism. And he's right. Absolutely right. Whatever these authoritarian weirdos are who are racist and believe in weird, freaky things, they are ruining the left. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is ruining the left. And there are people I even respect, who will support them for the simple reason that they agree with one thing. So it really bothers me when you see one of these far left politicians say something about identitarianism, get completely ignored. You know how many progressives I've talked to where I said, I can't support the Green New Deal because the second page is loaded with identitarianism? They go, it is? I'm like, did you read the thing, dude? My God. I'm not going to support, imagine if you have a candidate who's talking about all these really great things you love, and then they secretly are loading all of these different bills with gobbledygook nonsense dogma. If you don't pay attention to that, you will let one of these freakish authoritarians into your government. But people don't pay attention, whatever. Let's read the story. On Friday, author Noah Rothman appeared on Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO to discuss his latest book, Unjust: Social Justice and the Unmaking of America. During the segment, host Bill Maher castigated so-called social justice warriors who he said are not actually interested in justice or truth. I think you're onto something. I talk about it here a lot, that there is, I would say, a cancer on progressivism with some of the, I guess they call themselves social justice warriors. I don't think they're interested in justice. I don't think they're interested in truth. I think they're interested in clicks. I think they're interested in things that make people click. And when I read them, it makes me glad I didn't have kids who would see this. Hey, I got a smattering of applause there. Bravo, Bill Maher. Much respect. And I have, as much as I have called out Bill Maher for his faults, I absolutely respect anybody who's willing to do this. Listen, I don't care if you're a communist. I don't care if you're a laissez-faire capitalist, anarcho-capitalist, whatever, far left, far right. If you say you refuse violence, you refuse harming others, and you respect civil liberties and the foundations of our country, and freedom, liberty, etc., then we're good. Bill Maher, you want to believe the things you do, by all means. When you call for a recession, you are calling for harm on other people. It's not a solution. I do not like that. However, when you mention that there are people who are harming others and you call them a cancer on progressivism, well, I don't think you necessarily need to call them a cancer. I do respect you're willing to call out the authoritarian wingnuts who would harm others and push their authoritarian rhetoric. I feel like one really good way to exemplify what we kind of see with the regressive left, social justice warriors, whatever, is that they punch down all the time. And they think they're not. They think, a wealthy black woman can slam a poor white person or poor white working America. That's punching down. But the way they've defined it, it's a way that they can claim they're punching up. It's really weird when you are wealthy and powerful and you attack people beneath you. Now, just because someone is lower than you on a certain scale, however you define things. I'm talking about very clearly President Trump is at the top of a certain scale, though he does have people in the private sector and the media who are at a certain level to him as well. There are people who can be beneath you in terms of their power and still be worth criticizing, don't get me wrong. But we repeatedly see individuals target the working class in this country and then claim to be supporting the working class. Yes, yeah. Bill Maher, you're right, they are a cancer. But let's move on. This led to the following exchange. Some asides omitted for clarity. Rothman, well, social justice is a noble idea. It is the idea of fairness and equality and a just society in practice. In practice, it has become antipathy towards notions like meritocracy, like you can rise above your station in life, or colorblindness in institutions. White supremacists believe all this stuff too, which is why I've repeatedly called the far left, SJWs, whatever they are, left-wing white supremacists. They believe the same things. The only difference typically is that the positioning of the races. One side wants to be supreme, the other side thinks they shouldn't be supreme, but they believe mostly the same things. Bill Maher responds, yes, and it seems like they just say things to dare you to oppose them that would then make you a bad person. Like they'll say there are 71 genders, disagree with that, a-hole. And what about cultural appropriation? I mean, I think that's something they talk about a lot. I feel like that's something that was just made up. It doesn't really, no one is hurt by cultural appropriation. He's right. And you know why Mr. Mixed Race Social Liberal takes issue with the idea of cultural appropriation? Because what is my, when I was growing up, my parents are divorced, but like, what were they supposed to do? Is my dad not allowed to appropriate the culture of my mom and vice versa? Or my mom's mixed race too? Was her family not allowed to appropriate certain cultures? The assumption that one culture owns a certain practice is absurd, and we are the great American melting pot. You know what that means? It means, yes, sometimes you'll see a 16-year-old girl wear a kimono to her prom. And what do the Chinese think about it? After that whole fiasco, you may not have heard, there's a girl going to prom wearing a kimono. They didn't care. They were like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, wait, is kimono Japanese or Chinese? I'm thinking of what is it called, a gi or something? I'm mixing them up. Kimono is Japanese. I got it wrong. Now they're going to call that offensive because I'm mixing up. No, wait. I am part Asian. I'm allowed to say those things. Anyway, let's move on. Maher then wondered why white people wearing their hair in dreadlocks is seen by some as a negative appropriation of culture. Later in the segment, journalist Mary Catherine Ham brought up the story of Liz Connolly and Kali Wilgis, who approximated traditional tortilla-making methods and recipes for their Portland, Oregon pop-up burrito cart after returning from a trip to Puerto Nuevo, Mexico. After revealing during an interview with Willamette Week that they had gained their tortilla knowledge from speaking with Mexican women and peeking into the windows of every kitchen, after some of the women wouldn't reveal too much about their technique, Connolly and Wilgis were accused of cultural appropriation they were accused of cultural appropriation, and shortly thereafter, their business was closed. Regarding this story and the cultural appropriation phenomenon, Maher said, these people just want to bitch. That's not a swear. According to the Oxford Dictionary, cultural appropriation is the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas of one people of society by members of another, and typically more dominant people of society. So I'm always confused by this because, okay, what if I start doing something traditionally Korean? And then someone looks at me and they don't know what I am, so they insult me and tell me it's cultural appropriation. Do I then have to show you my papers? This is why I hate these people. They seriously want you to show them your papers. There was a Jewish guy in Philadelphia. He was attacked by Antifa while they screamed Nazi. He said he was Jewish, and they said, how do we know? What the fuck do you... got me swearing now. What am I supposed to do to prove I am German, Irish, and Korean? And I respect all of those cultures. And it did mean a lot to me the first time I went to Ireland. I went to Northern Ireland, not, Dublin. I would like to go there too. I actually found out recently I'm also part British because it's like a Great Britain diaspora kind of thing. And so, growing up with certain Irish symbols and German and mostly Korean, I got to admit, because the German-Irish portion of my family is more Americanized and less concerned about European culture. But the Korean part was prominent, so it did mean a lot to me going there. I was like, oh, this is really cool. But the idea of cultural appropriation is extremely offensive to me as someone who comes from cultures that have mixed. You have no right to tell other people what they can or can't enjoy or appropriate. This world should be coming together, sharing cultures, and become listen, let me ask you this. How could the same people who talk about multiculturalism oppose cultural appropriation? It's like they want to take all these different cultures and put them in perfect little squares and put them next to each other, but never let them mix. It's like people who have a plate full of food and they can't have the ketchup touch their French fries because otherwise they'll freak out. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I can respect that. I like to get my sides in little separate dishes. But sometimes you have a plate and you got like a chicken breast and there's juices coming off it. It gets into your broccoli, right? Things mix together, and that's a good thing. America is called a melting pot for a reason. We have many migrants that come here and they set up, little like enclaves, Chinatown, Ukrainian Village in Chicago, Little Italy, places like this. How can you claim to support different cultures and migration, but at the same time reject people's willingness to come together? I always tell people when it comes to this issue, if you see someone doing something wrong, say, hey, it's really cool that you really like my culture. Let me explain it to you. And they'll be like, cool. That simple. But these people they're assholes. We'll just start swearing, whatever. Stories of alleged cultural appropriation abound in the media from a London restaurant that was slammed over their vegan biryani wrap, reports The Week, to white female rapper Iggy Azalea mimicking the vocal patterns and phrases of a Southern black girl. Oh my God. Perhaps the primary issue regarding alleged cultural appropriation is that no one can state with any certainty what constitutes inappropriate adoption. It's an amorphous term and will likely continue to be, meaning social justice warriors can stretch it to cover whatever they need at any time. Yes, that's the point. And I'm going to throw back to an old issue that I covered to exemplify this point for those that haven't heard it. At one point, An institution used the word womixen. Let me say that again for you. Womixen. Yes, that's W-O-M-X-N. They're saying women, but replacing the E with an X. Now, some people said it was wominx, but that doesn't make sense. And if you were going to read it phonetically, it would be womixen. So a bunch of feminists got angry and said spelling women with an X is exclusionary because, women of color and trans women don't need a special word. They are women. So then they started apologizing and saying the word women. So hold on. You have one group saying women should be with a Y, one saying it should be with an A, and one saying it should be with an X. Well, shortly after the Womixen thing happened, a bunch of people got offended that they weren't calling people Womixen. The point is, what do? Which one do you pick? An institution said, we are going to use the X because it's less offensive. So then an organization does, they get told it's offensive. It's literally all offensive on purpose. It is about bullies who want to push you around and tell you what to do because they're crazy. Or, as Bill Maher said, they are a cancer. We'll leave it there. Stick around. I got more videos coming up in just a few minutes.